Hello, viewers of UKSM, and welcome back to UKSM Winter. Next up, we're going to have Drakodan once again with Astro Boy Omega Factor in the Birth category. Over the past few minutes, you've been watching some videos from Special Effects, showcasing some of the incredible work that they do with disabled people across the country, giving them the ability to game once again after that ability had either been taken away from them due to their disability, or maybe it was an ability they never really had in the first place. If you would like to support more incredible work from Special Effect, then all you need to do is !donate in the chat, just like jdub.exe, one of our fantastic mods, has already done. All you need to do is click through to that link. Every little helps, it really does. You don't need to donate a massive amount. You just can donate literally anything. Drakodan, I'm going to hand things over to you now. Please start at your leisure.
Right, thank you very much, Matt. God, these guys thought they'd gotten rid of me for, like, doing 2 runs, overstaying my welcome. Who let this guy on stream? Oh my god. So, Astro Boy. GBA title. Kinda the same deal as Sparkster, but not really. There's a lot more weird stuff going on in this run. I will do my best to let you all know what's happening, but as I mentioned last time I did a marathon run of this game, don't think about the plot too hard. It's not worth the hassle of trying to figure out what's going on. Just sit back and enjoy it. So I'm going to begin in 3, 2, 1, and go. There we go. So, Omega Factor. Side-scrolling beat-em-up game. This is a treasure game. If you've ever played treasure games before, like Gunstar Heroes, Alien Soldier, stuff like that, you'll know a lot of what to expect. A lot of punching and kicking through enemy waves. And what you're seeing here with just killing enemy waves, this is the backbone of how progression in this game works. You need to defeat a current enemy wave before the next enemy wave will spawn, and the game defines an enemy wave as being finished as when the corpses of the enemies leave the screen. Like you can see after I destroy them, they bounce around the screen for a bit before exiting the screen. That is when the screen unlocks and I can then move on to the next enemy wave. And it is random, the trajectories that they bounce around, and also the positions that they come on screen on. So there is a little bit of improvisation with some of the enemy waves, and with certain enemy waves, they do appear in very predictable ways, and using specific attacks to try and kill them as efficiently as possible. So, coin flip RNG here. This first car will either go high or low, and if it goes low, you can't really avoid taking a hit there and losing a slight amount of time, but it is what it is. It's just 50-50 RNG. And getting our first upgrade point. So, the upgrade system is an integral part of how this game is played. Every time Astro meets a character and learns about their personality and emotions, Astro grows a bit more and unlocks some potential in his Omega Factor, which gives a upgrade point, which you can give to any of the stats that you saw before, like life, punch, laser, shot, jets, sensor, a lot of different stats that you can boost. A lot of them are self-explanatory, and the only stat that we're going to be interested in boosting for the first half of the game, basically, is the laser stat, since it is the highest damage option we have available for boss fights, and also for many of the auto-scroller sections of the game. The game is divided into these on-foot side-scrolling sections, and then there's also auto-scroller sections, and whilst you're in an auto-scroller, you cannot use any of your hand-to-hand abilities. You can only use your finger laser, basically. So if you have points invested into punch, they can make these on-foot sections faster, but they also do not help you at all within the auto-scroller section, since you can't use the punch stat whatsoever. Wow, these are really unfriendly movements. Like I say, a lot of RNG in this game in terms of enemy placements, and sometimes they can be really unfavourable, as they were there. So coming into the first mini-boss of the game now. Bosses are the other reason that we boost the laser stat as much as possible. Astro has 3 super attacks. This one is bound to R, and this is the arm cannon. It is the strongest damage option in the game, and you can see there it absolutely chewed through that mini-boss's health. It'll do stuff like that even faster once it's boosted to a high level. Like I say, we're just going to pump the laser stat more and more. So for the stage 1 boss, it's 4 mini phases, and with 2 points in laser, all I need is 1 punch followed by an arm cannon for each of these mini phases after his iframes end. every time you trigger a super attack like I am, you can see that there is a short startup animation, which is about 2 seconds long. So even though the arm cannon is the highest DPS option I have, I don't use it all the time against just trash enemies going through a stage, since if it takes 2 seconds to start up, it really needs to save at least that much time to be worth using. And in many cases outside of boss fights, it simply doesn't save that much time unless you can use it to hit every enemy on the screen and they have a large HP pool. So here's the first auto-scroll section. As you can see, using the finger laser here, as mentioned again, we do not have access to hand-to-hand combat here. This does follow the same rule as the on-foot sections, where the next waves are going to start when the previous wave is finished, which is defined as the previous wave being off-screen. Many of these enemy placements are fully determined, they're scripted, so a lot of these auto-scrollers are just about being in the correct position to start damaging the next wave as soon as possible, and just kill it as soon as possible. When a mini-boss spawns here, I'm just going to use 2 arm cannons to again just chew through it. We're going to be coming into the next mini-boss very soon, sooner than you would expect actually. So that wave there, it actually makes no difference whether you destroy them or not. So I tend to prefer to not destroy those, since if you cause a lot of effects to happen, you can potentially just lag the game out. So here's the next mini-boss, Artificial Sun. And 2 arm cannons to do the first phase. I want it to end in the center of the screen if possible. Not exactly. As you can see there, it needs to travel to its next spot to start phase 2. I'm going to chain some more arm cannons together. Even though the game lags out quite a bit, it is the fastest way to deal with this phase. As it loses HP, it's going to grow larger and larger to take up more of the screen. But it's going to be dead before it really has a chance to hit me. And I'm going to finish it off with the finger laser, since it has little enough remaining HP there that using the finger laser is faster than using another arm cannon. Again, since the startup time is so long, you don't want to use the arm cannon unless it is really worth all of the time it takes to use it. So another mini-boss here. Guess what I'm going to do to this one? I'm going to chew through it. Like, the arm cannon does a lot of damage, and there's still barely any points in laser. Like, this thing does a lot of damage. So we're going to keep boosting it, and we're going to carry on. So there's a dark room here where I can't see anything, because I don't have any points in the hyper sensor, but as long as you know the route through the room, which is fairly simple, you can just do it no problem. Getting 1 more upgrade point, so once again, boosting laser. And there's a wall to the left here which I need to destroy to progress, so just fire an arm cannon straight at it. That unlocks the door over to the right. Please? Ah, really? Okay, whatever. Still getting there through fairly cleanly. So there's a few robot mechs in the screen. At this point, 1 punch and an arm cannon will dispatch them all. For this set here, I am going to use a boost to cheat out of getting damage. One of the nice things about the boost in this game is that it makes you completely intangible. Astro basically doesn't have a hitbox whilst the boost is in progress, and you cannot be damaged by any source. Nothing can even interact with you whilst you're boosting. So you can use that to get out of like anything that would otherwise cause damage to you. I'm going to use a shot here to make sure I don't miss this upgrade point that's in the background. You need to interact with the background in a specific spot to get this upgrade point. So the shot's the other main super attack that I have, and it's a very weak attack, but it's a screen-wide attack, which, as you see there, can be used to stun enemies on the entire screen, or to, oh man, this guy. Thank you. Alright. Yeah, the bats can be pretty irritating when they get stuck under like that. But there's not too many of them throughout the game, so it's whatever. Okay, waiting until a specific time to trigger the arm cannon, where the arm cannon can also give you like a selective kind of invincibility where certain attacks simply won't hit you. And that enemy falling on you there appears to be one of them, where normally it would fall on you and deal a hefty amount of damage, but you can just avoid that with triggering the arm cannon at the right time. So Pook here is always going to go through 4 animal forms to start the fight. Hello? That was strange. Alright. So he's always going to go through his 4 animal forms, and then once he's gone through all 4 of them, he's going to randomly switch between the forms. I want to see the lion as little as possible once he starts randomly switching, because there is a bit of forced time loss every time it appears. from the green aura that it has when it comes in, where you can't damage through it. So there's one transformation left, I just don't want it to be the lion. Whatever. You can mitigate the time loss by going behind him though, because that forces the green aura to drop early since he needs to turn around to face you. So stage 2 done. And now we are going to the moon for stage 3. We're just going to the moon to solve a crisis. And we're going to put this point into shot rather than laser, because there's a couple of spots where, again, shot is a screen-wide attack, and there are certain spots where there are a lot of enemies across the screen, and using a shot is simply the cleanest way to dispatch them all. I did, recently, and by recently I mean this year, finish making the TAS of the run that I'm doing right now, which thankfully was accepted to TAS videos. Very grateful to them for accepting it. And I actually don't use the shot in the TAS simply because you don't really need that kind of utility when you can play perfectly and can control every element of RNG, but that's not necessarily reasonable in RTA play. Using the shot in a lot of cases is simply the most effective way to deal with a lot of the random elements that come up in this game. Okay, these guys are being a bit unfriendly, but I should be able to finish this section with just one more upwards. Oh my god. Alright, I'm gonna have to improvise here. And I'm gonna have to improvise again. This is dreadful. I can't believe this enemy is just blocking me this hard. Alright, that was not a very good section. But you did get to see the third super attack, which is very uncommonly used. That's pretty much the only spot in the run where you may use the third super attack, the EX dash. It's performed by using A and B on the same frame. And it basically serves as an additional jump, which also deals hefty damage to anything that's in the way of it. But it can be very laggy, and it's situational at best. Like, I only used it there because I need more jumps. I don't have any points invested into the jet stat, so I can't use more than one boost in midair. Which is a little unfortunate, but again, just boosting laser and only laser is simply the fastest way to progress through the first half of the game. One more arm cannon here. There's going to be one more enemy spawning here. Boost down. Counteract the low grav. One more arm cannon. Now, if that grey enemy leaves the screen fast enough, the second one doesn't have time to spawn, and the screen just unlocks and goes straight to this next one. Hopefully I'm in the right spot here. Okay, good. With a precisely placed laser there, you can hit the bottom and top enemies and destroy everything on that screen there with one attack. So Goblin Neck here, I'm just going to alternate using punches and arm cannons to try and maximize my damage output. He's going to die after this next arm cannon finishes, or he's going to have enough time to get a hit off on me, but he's left with very little HP, so it's fine. So this room, it's like the dark room from stage 2, where I can't see where I'm going because I don't have any points in the hypersensor, but it's not a difficult room to move through. Get one more optional point here. And this optional upgrade point is more important than you might think, because this screen in general lags a lot, but for whatever reason, if you pick up this upgrade point, you do not get the lag whatsoever. I have no idea why it works, but it does. It's one of the strangest things in this game. Like, right now, this section should be taking twice as long as it is due to getting lag on every other frame, but because I have that upgrade point, the lag simply isn't occurring. That's something that I found by accident whilst routing 100%, because I didn't think to take the upgrade point before getting every upgrade point in the game, and I was just like, oh, hang on, there's no lag here, what's going on? So that's one of the strangest things I've come across in this game. This game really doesn't have anything in the way of glitches or exploits, but there are still some strange quirks of how the game can behave like that. Please? No. Alright, well, thanks again. Okay, I still did manage to clip through there. I said that there's no glitches, and then I kind of clipped through there, but there's really no substantial glitches in the sense of being able to go out of bounds or zipping or anything like that. There's only some very minor stuff that you can exploit. There's some fixed enemy waves here. So after this next wave, I'm going to try a little trick to boost my damage output. So I used a boost there after my third punch in order to reset my punch combo. When you use a normal punch combo in this game, you do 3 punches followed by a kick. The kick does have a slightly longer animation, so if you need more hits to destroy enemies, it's faster to just cancel the combo with a boost after the third punch, and then just restart punching again. If you are on the ground, you can actually do that infinitely, because I mentioned that you can't use repeated boosts without points in the jet stat. That only applies to airborne boosting. If you're on the ground, your boosts basically get refreshed when you are considered grounded. So if you are on the ground, the boost gets refreshed as soon as it finishes. So you can just infinitely do that. You can just do like 3-punch boost, 3-punch boost, 3-punch boost infinitely, as long as you're on the ground. And it does speed up your damage output quite considerably. There's just not a lot of times where it's really necessary to use. So now we're at the South Pole. Again, don't think too hard about why things are happening. All you need to know is there's a terrorist plot going on at the South Pole, of all places. Please? Alright, whatever. I'll just arm cannon from this side instead and hope that... Of course they were getting pushed off screen. So you got to see a nice example there of how enemies are not really considered to be loaded if they're not currently on screen. So even though I'm using a lot of screen-wide attacks, I'm trying to be careful to keep everything on screen so that everything can at least be damaged. And now we get a nice little auto-scroll section where I need to destroy a certain number of these small platforms to get a large platform to come out, which is kind of a mini-boss, but not really. It's still pathetic. And same rule as every other wave in the game. These will spawn as the other ones leave the screen. However, these are completely random, so I have no control over where they appear, so I just need to get to them as fast as possible. It's preferable for them to be on the right because they exit the screen sooner, but again, I don't have control over that. The one-arm cannon followed by finger laser to finish off. And now we need to go straight back the way we came, as there is a nuclear tank headed for the place we just came from, with the first robot president. That's the plot of what's going on here, is that Antarctica has the first robot president, and there's a human terrorist organization that hates robots that really doesn't like that. So they want to blow him up. And we're like, no. So we're going back to stop that. Okay, that's fast enough for that section. These rotating spike ball things can be a little irritating in that they have some periods of forced invulnerability, but as long as I can kill them in like that sort of area of their movement cycle, it's fairly quick going. Okay, pretty decent. I'm gonna go up here. Now, if you watch the pass, as you might imagine, there's not that much to do in these auto-scroller sections, so instead I just bounce Astro around the screen like a DVD logo, which I found very fun to do, even though it was very tedious to actually, you know, put into Task Studio, into the input viewer. But it was very fun, and then you also get to play the game of, does Astro ever reach the cornermost pixel of the screen, like a DVD logo? And I know for a fact, because, you know, I wrote the movie, that at least one point he does touch the cornermost pixels, so if you ever watch the task, be sure to keep an eye out for that. You can see if you can pinpoint that moment where he does reach the very corner of the screen. So here's the nuclear tank, Caribs. I'm going to start with 2 arm cannons, finger laser him down another segment of his health bar, and then finish off with 1 more arm cannon whilst inside his body. Again, you get very selective invincibility whilst you're using the arm cannon, and you can just ignore very weird types of damage. So I'm going to use a boost here to get past this enemy. This is a very nice thing about the intangibility that the boost provides you, that since you can't interact with enemies, you can just go straight through enemies, and this also means that you can basically force enemies to one side, because Astro cannot occupy the same space as an enemy. So once you become solid again, if you are in the same place as an enemy, something has to move to, you know, accommodate some space. And very often, if you boost to the very border of the screen, it's going to be the enemy that's forced inwards. So you can just boost past an enemy, as I did there, and then just turn around and get an easy screen-wide attack. It's like a very consistent method you can use to hit everything on the screen at once. So jumping at the end of that screen there is a very slight optimization. Going back to what I've mentioned before about the wave ends when the enemies leave the screen. Enemies are always going to leave the screen by going off the bottom. And if you scroll the camera upwards by jumping, they leave the screen slightly sooner. So that's a very minor optimization. That's something that generally doesn't exist in RTA play. Like, you can do it, but it's not necessarily better to force yourself to be airborne and then have to use an air boost and wait to get grounded before boosting again. But in the task, that's something that I use a lot, like in a lot of places, to save frames. So this is the last big auto-scroller of the game, thankfully. Alright, wasting a little bit of time there with not getting that spike ball as quickly as I would have liked due to it getting its slight invincibility while it closes up. So this enemy wave here is kind of unique in that it's one of the few enemy waves where it actually doesn't matter whether I destroy them or not. So, as I've mentioned before, if I don't need to destroy something, I'm just going to choose not to, because all I can potentially do is lag out the game. Okay. The placement of the enemies there is random, so again, you want to destroy enemies as soon as possible, but sometimes they're just not in positions you can reach quickly, which just sometimes happens. And these enemies, I also don't need to destroy them, I just need to be close to them to force them to detonate. So for these platforms that are coming up, it is very slightly faster to finger laser them down rather than use an arm cannon if you can maintain constant damage output on them and make them end at the bottom so that they exit the screen sooner. If you can't get all those things to happen, it is slightly faster to use an arm cannon. So it's just one of those things. Do you want to like try that or not? And like I say, it's a very, very minor time save either way. So now we get this turret coming out of the train, which can use multiple different kinds of attacks, which take a certain amount of time. And it's really trolling me with slow attacks. If it uses the right attack, it just stays out the entire time, and I can just arm cannon it to death without it becoming invulnerable again, but didn't really get the RNG that I needed there. So using a couple of kicks to cluster the enemies there, and then I can just punch combo them to death. The kick is something that I haven't really highlighted a lot, but it's one of those things that's again only really situationally useful, where you can turn enemies themselves into projectiles and use them to hit other enemies. They do inflict a slight amount of damage, and they force other enemies to start tumbling, so it's a very nice crowd control tool. Oh really? He hadn't spawned? I thought I'd given enough time there. So on this section, 6 enemies spawn at a time, and I'm using the same trick again of boosting to the side to force enemies inwards so that I can just turn around and hit everything on the screen simultaneously. And you generally want to do that once all 6 enemies have spawned, but because of this foreground layer, you can't really see where the enemies are, so it's supposed to be like a bit of a surprise where they're coming from. But they take a certain amount of time to spawn, so if you just wait a certain amount of time, then you're pretty safe in knowing that you can just go and you're going to get them all. So Dead Cross here is a joke of a boss, just going to arm cannon. He's accompanied by this mech, which is supposed to hit you quite hard, but it's not going to get time to hit me because it's going to be dead. And then Dead Cross is also going to be dead. Like his name, innit? Is Dead Cross? Oh, funny jokes. So stage 5, done, yes. And now we're going to travel back 30,000 years in time. Again, don't think about it too hard. Don't hurt yourself. Just go along with it. Just enjoy the game for what it is. And so we're going to go through this prehistoric civilization. Is it really prehistoric if there's records of the civilization? I don't think that's what the definition of prehistoric means, is it? I don't know. Either way, same deal. Like ancient enemies, but they die to the same stuff. So just boost past, you know, get screen-wide attacks. Gonna do the same thing here on the ground, try and force these enemies inwards. And oh, I'm not gonna get enough uptime on. Yeah, I didn't think I'd get enough uptime there on the arm cannon. That's unfortunate, but whatever. Clustering the enemies with a kick again. Bet you'll never guess how we do this wave. It's really consistent. For this wave, however, gonna use a kick to try and cluster these and prevent them from shielding. Because these small enemies, even though they're tiny, they can be very irritating, since if they put up their shields, they are completely invulnerable to every form of damage. And you really have to just move away from the enemies properly, especially getting above the enemies to force them to stop shielding. They just don't stop shielding until you move away sufficiently. So we get a nice little bit of movement on this screen. These rolling wheels do knock you back very considerably if they ever touch you, but we can just boost through them. Again, we're like intangible whilst boosting. And you can go up slopes very quickly with the boost. I presume because the game can't force you to like move horizontally on some frames, so it forces you to move up a little instead. It basically boosts you up faster than it should. So now we get the stage 6 boss, Sharaku. And I've started the fight with a little bit of an AI manipulation. There's a couple of different special attacks that you can use in this fight. One of them is his green attack, which is very bad to see. It basically makes him completely invulnerable for over 10 seconds, just wastes a lot of time. However, he can only use one color-coded attack at a time, and if you begin the fight by being directly below him, it forces him to use his red attack, which summons that snake that just flies around, and it lasts for the duration of the fight, so he cannot use his green attack if that's on screen. So now we come to stage 7. We've gotten back to the present day, and the timeline has changed, and we're now in a post-apocalyptic future where all-out war has broken out between humans and robots, so it's like, oh, no. So now we need to defeat the world's strongest robots. We've just defeated one of them, North, the versatile robot. Versatile in the ways that he dies. Boosting up the shot, and you may think, well, we haven't been using the shot like at all through the run. What's the point in taking this? The run's nearly over, we haven't been using it. But we're going to start using it now. Because as you level up the shot more, the duration of the stun that it applies to enemies becomes longer. And you can use it to infinitely stun lock things. This fight is supposed to be, you hit this guy like once, then he turns invisible, and you need to go through a lengthy process to turn invisible again, and that happens every time you deal damage to Denko. But by using the shot to stun lock, you can just do it like that, and it turns a very long fight into a very short fight. And it's going to turn all the other fights into very short fights. Brontus here also is supposed to be fairly extended, like he bounces around like this and is only vulnerable once he exposes his core, like this. Which only stays out for a short time, but again, we can use the shot to just infinitely stun lock him. At this point of the shot being upgraded, I can use 2 lasers per shot usage, so I'm just going to use shot, followed by 2 lasers, and I'm just going to repeat this cycle. I can finish off with a punch here, it's fine. He's got very little health left. So we've only got 2 boss fights left. We've got the aquatic robot Epsilon, and we've got the world's strongest robot Pluto. I'm going to start the Epsilon fight with a shot, in order to scout out which attack Epsilon is using. It's signified by which arm he raises, and I really want to know if it's his left arm that's going up. Okay, his right arm, that's fine. So I'm just going to use arm cannons to just burn him down here. If he was using his other arm, he'd be using his own laser attack, which gives him invincibility when it starts up, so I would need to use a shot to maintain the stun lock. Even though you kill him there, and even though the whale despawns, it still hits you and bounces you around, like that's strange. So final boss now. We just put this point into life because it's the fastest stat to upgrade. Now Astro needs to walk to the portal, oh well. And we've got Pluto. Same strategy as the other fights, I'm just going to use laser to burn him down and shot to stun lock him where appropriate. Which attack's he going for here? Plasma, alright. I'm going to actually just stun lock him here because once this attack starts up, it is incredibly laggy. It's going to be a fair bit faster for me to just maintain the stun lock and not allow this attack to start up. Except it still does. And you can see there, it deals very heavy damage. Every frame of contact that it has with you there, you take a lot of damage from that. This is the best attack for him to use, is Missile Volley. It causes basically no lag when it occurs. Flame attack is fine. Just jump over it. And time is when Pluto's health reaches 0, which is going to be on the next arm cannon. So, time. Speedrun. And then you go through the score countdown, you get one more upgrade point, and then it's like, oh yeah, we defeated the world's strongest robots, and then the world ends. Like, world's a fireball now. Bad end. This is only any percent. The game has a very involved plot involving multiple playthroughs where you gain the ability to travel through time and you have to like fix stuff and change the timeline. And as I've said multiple times already, don't think about it too hard. just enjoy the game. Unless you want to experience the game properly, in which case it's an amazing storyline and I highly recommend it. But either way, even if you're only going to watch this run, I hope you all enjoyed the run. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to run. Thanks for UKSM for putting this on. And yeah, good luck to all the remaining runners, and I'll see you guys next time.
Well, before we do move on to talking about the remaining runner of the day, we had a £50 donation from Gopher during that run. The comment says, "You guys rock." No, Gopher, you rock. With that said, next up on the docket is Benedict Data with Bioshock Infinite in the All Collectibles category. That is scheduled to go live at 6:34, so we are going to have that in exactly 10 minutes from now. In the intermission, I'll be playing some videos from Special Effects, so please do stick around so that you can see some of the incredible work that they do for disabled people across the country. We'll be back with you very shortly.